That is one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is they underestimate the fact that you're actually the CEO of your own project, and you have to step into that role and own it.
Yeah, you hire the contractor, but they ultimately report to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're the one that makes the decisions, and you have to keep the mindset of you are working for me, and you can bring me ideas, you can bring me a solution to an issue that you see, but ultimately I'm making that decision because I'm the one writing that check. It's my return on the investment that I'm after, and not necessarily your company's return.
Your contractor is not your coach. Their job is to build and execute the plan. If you are giving them, that's too direct, but I've seen so many investors give their contractors way too much control and authority over their project, and it ends up costing them money in the end. My name is Rachel Niederhofer.
And I'm Justin Niederhofer, and this is Return on Design,
the podcast where beauty meets strategy and interiors become assets that perform. Today, we are going to talk about why your contractor should never be your strategist and how you can actually take back control over your own renovation project.
Like, a contractor's job is to execute, not necessarily plan the design. That's where you come in.
Yes.
Giving them your plan, giving them your budget, or giving them your idea and your budget and saying, what do I need to do? You're going to wind up with what works best for them, is easiest for them, not necessarily what you want.
Yeah, it could cost you more time, more money, and definitely more heartache in the end. So we're going to talk to you about how to take control over your renovation process and what role you need to be in and what role your contractor needs to.
Because sometimes they're going to prioritize giving you a little bit, the easiest thing for them, or upselling you on the next piece that maybe you don't need, or it just winds up being easier for them and more money in their pocket.
Yeah. Or we see it all the time in design, where we'll come in and we're having to fix what a contractor never strategized to do. Maybe they just had a little extra space in a corner, and instead of making it an impactful space, the client later realizes, oh, this is a huge waste of space, and I paid a lot of money to do that. So we end up having to fix it. I mean, we're working on one right now. It didn't happen with us, but a design client hired a contractor to come in and do a renovation. And they did, but there wasn't a lot of strategy behind the design. It was more purely aesthetic, just kind of filling in voids. And it just hasn't had that full return on design for the client. Experientially, they're not enjoying it to the way, they should be. They spent a lot of money, so they're not seeing that financial return. And, it happens a lot. Wasted square footage. We even see it in new construction builds all the time. A separate project we're working on, and the house has never been renovated, but the original footprint is just so much wasted space that doesn't make sense, and it doesn't suit the client's needs. So you can't rely on your contractor or your builder to be your strategy partner when it comes to interior design and even fund allocation to meet those goals for the space. So the design client that I mentioned, that we are currently correcting poor design that was already executed through a renovation project by a contractor. What happened was they were relying on the contractor to lead charge from a design standpoint, and that's not their role. They're not going to fall into that mold. Of course, there's always an exception, but strategically, you have to know what they're capable of. And Justin said,
from
asking
a design
the why.
aspect, it's what is the function of the space?
Mm-hmm.
What are you wanting to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Does what the contractor is thinking of doing or saying they're going to do, does it make sense to do that?
Yeah. And looking at it, in this specific example, they have a need for optimizing square footage. So instead of just, blanketing square footage to nothing because you don't know what else to do with it, having that strategy of, okay, well, how can we take this extra square footage and maybe use it differently maybe not even in the same room, maybe to make it make more sense and have an impact, not just so that you don't have buyer's remorse after you spend $20,000 on the renovation, but that you are actually enjoying it. Every time you go over there, you're like, oh, that was worth doing because this is making my life so much easier. And it's meeting the needs that I have in the space. And most contractors are not going to think that way because that's not the design of the role. I mean, they're going to come in and they're going to execute. They're not going to say, oh, well, have you thought about, do you have enough storage for, all your necessities in the room? Should we think about that? Again, there's exceptions, but for the most part, if you hand them that baton, like you may never get it back. It's going to cost you because you didn't think about that in the initial planning phases.
We got to think about how can we change the strategy behind how we ask our questions instead of telling, what should I do? Asking like, what options do I have? What are the costs of those options? And what is that going to look like?
Yeah. Great point.
Sometimes it's not necessarily what question you're asking, is how you phrase that question, because what should I do versus what are my options? You're asking the same things.
Yeah.
Like, what can I do in this space?
Well, I don't even know if you're asking the same thing, because to your point, I mean, it's like a very strategic thought process of, you can weed out, do they know what they're talking about just by asking that question?
Mm-hmm.
If they're unable to give you options, then they're probably not the right strategy partner to help you. A solution isn't always the best response.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, this may be the easiest option
or
the most expensive option that I get paid the most on.
And it may simply just be like, that's their capacity. That's their knowledge base. Like they don't know. And therefore you can determine like, okay, you're not the right partner, not because your intentions aren't good, but because your experience level is not where I need it to be. Like you're just not the right partner. I mean, Justin, you're so good at like formulating questions in a way that you're taking someone on a journey. It's almost like reverse engineering is how I think of it. But like, how do you ask better questions to help pull out the information that's going to help you make a better decision?
Well, for me, sometimes one of the ways I've learned to kind of weed out, is this person going to help me, or is this the right person? Or, how do we is like asking a few questions that I already know the answers to see if they can start going down the same route. And if they can give me the details that I'm needing and wanting, then that tells me this is somebody that is thinking. I want somebody who's going to think, not just do.
Yeah. Well, but it depends on what you're doing. Because like if you're looking for a strategic partner, yes, you have to be able to think.
But even in some of the work and just some of the trade, because inevitably there's going to come a point in a project or a piece of a job, and it's like
problem solve.
We have a little bit of an issue right here, and we've got to problem solve it. Mm-hmm. Can you come to me with a solution to the problem and say, hey, we have this, I can do this, or I can do this, and these are the looks that it's going to give you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And which one do you like?
Yeah, which happens all the time. I can
solve this. That tells me that's somebody who has the forethought in their job.
Yeah, true. That makes it
not
good.
I'm just going to slap it together and hey, okay.
Yeah, they'll never know.
Yeah,
I'll just.
I promise you that somebody's going to know, and that one right there, she knows.
Oh, and I'll have you redo it too.
Sometimes I don't know that I have a great.
It's not like a set of questions.
I don't have a direct set of questions that I ask all the time, but as I have grown and broadened my knowledge base on aspects of the construction and doing specific jobs, I've learned little bits and pieces watching and just kind of learning. And it's like,
it's something we do often for just character too. Mm-hmm. Is this person a person of integrity that, is going to show up and be consistent to actually help us achieve the goal? So sometimes subtle, relational questions can help us weed out early on, like, no, not the right person, or yeah, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
Which is important when you're, cultivating the right team, and you're trusting. Like, it takes a level of trust, and sometimes you're going to get it, sometimes you're not. I mean, I was going to say that plumbing.
Yeah.
Let's
So
segue into that.
we had a job that we were working on, and working in this kitchen, and we had electric and gas already
Dual fuel
ready,
option.
stubbed in that, from the previous design, and we weren't relocating where everything was going, but in the process, with the new stove we were going to put in, the gas line where it was coming out of the wall was too high. It was actually going to cause us not to be able to put the stove in correctly. And in asking, it's like, well, what options do I have? It was one of the first questions I asked. And it's like, well, they told me, well, I can cut this, and then I have to do this and this and this, and it could add more. I'm like, okay, well, what kind of line do we have run back there? Well, it turned out we had it was called a poly line. It wasn't a steel solid piece of pipe. It was a poly line, which is very commonly used, especially nowadays, and is a great option. Well, it dawned on me, hey, if we have enough excess in the attic, can we just slide a little bit more pipe down through the wall to drop this outlet, and it sit right where it needs to be? Well, we crawled up there, and sure enough, there was more than enough pipe in the attic, just kind of laid out. We straightened it in the top, and we're able to put the pipe right where we needed to. And what turned out to be a 30-minute solution, and saved us thousands in new material, wall cost, tests.
Well, it's like the probing question of like, the first reaction often with a contractor or subcontractor is, oh, well, let's go to the extreme scenario, like 0 to 100. It's going to cost this and be this, and versus coming in through the lens of like, okay, wait a minute, let's think about it. Like, what's the existing structure, and what are the solutions that could come of this? And, just getting people to think.
Not making rash decisions,
Yeah, I mean, if you wouldn't have asked that probing question and viewed it from a creative, strategy-driven standpoint, like, they probably would have never done that. They just would have went in and executed with what they knew would get them the result, versus the problem-solving component that actually ends up saving money, saving time.
And this is also one of those situations where it takes you being involved in your project. Absolutely. And not just giving them the right to make all the decisions. Because had I not been there, or had I not, if I'd have just said, go in, take care of it, it could have cost me a lot more money.
True.
He could have just said, well, they said to take care of it, fix it, so this is what we're going to do. And they may not have thought about it. But by saying, hey, we've got an issue. If there's an issue, you call me, you talk with me, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
I took back the control of, I make the decision. I'm the one writing the check. I make the decision.
Even if you're not the direct day in, day out point of contact to be involved, you have to have the right team around you to play that role on your behalf. And it should not just be your contractor or your tradesman that's doing the craft. I mean, you have to build like a very strong relationship over time before you really start delegating that. Whether you have like in our business, that's exactly what we do for our clients. We do it as investors, but we also do it for our design clients. And we bring them a whole lot more strategy and representation than, just somebody who doesn't. And if you're like an investor and you have a big team, you need to have the right project management oversight. And I would say it needs to be an internal person, not someone that you're, divvying out, all control, all money. And because at the end of the day, that
contractor's out for their return for their company, not necessarily yours.
Exactly. I mean, that is one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is they underestimate the fact that you're actually the CEO of your own project, and you have to step into that role and own it.
Yeah, you hire the contractor, but they ultimately report to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you're the one that makes the decisions, and you have to keep the mindset of you are working for me, and you can bring me ideas, you can bring me a solution to an issue that you see, but ultimately I'm making that decision because I'm the one writing that check. It's my return on the investment that I'm after,
Mm-hmm.
and not necessarily your company's return.
Yeah.
I kind of view a lot of it like, I want my contractor, I want them to make money, but I need to make money too. And your return does not get greater priority than mine, though.
Right. Yeah. And not everyone's going to like that. So, finding the right people that work for you, and, just people you're aligned with for your project. Because your contractor is not your coach. It's a collaborative effort as a teammate.
But ultimately, you're the one leading the team.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be.
and approaching your project like a business, then you get to dictate and have more control over your return, over your investments, over what ultimately happens.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just like if you're working in a corporate environment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're overseeing your project that you're assigned to, and it's no different. It shouldn't be viewed any differently. Like, you're writing the check. You're the one that's going to be responsible. You're the one, yes, that can make the money. And, people want to throw that out there. Oh, well, you're making all the money. Well, yeah, but you're also hedging all the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And so your reward is going to lend to that as well. We've seen that over and over again with tradespeople, like, oh, the illusion of like, y'all are making so much money. Like, yeah, but we're also writing all the checks. We're hedging all the risk, and we're the ones on the line. So you collaborate with us, and you can make a little bit of money too, or some money too. But it doesn't have to be a combative, like, challenging thing. So that was bonus content, maybe. Kind of got off into a different segue there.
Yeah, your contractor is a teammate, but you've got to take the lead, and by doing so, you protect and you hedge your investment, and ultimately take back control over the success of your projects. So remember, you've got to stay in charge, stay strategic, and ultimately you'll protect your returns.
I think you should say that again, because your strategic came out a little funky.
Did it?
A little bit. Try it.
Okay. So remember to stay in charge, stay strategic, and you'll always protect your returns.
So if this episode has inspired you to think strategically on how to lead your own project and gain control of your ROI, make sure you like, subscribe, and follow along with Return on Design so you can get all the latest episodes.
And make sure to connect with us on social media and stay tuned with all the projects that we've got coming up.
Thanks for joining. See you next time.